Picture this. You're 68 years old. You're finally retired. You've got more money in your account than you've ever had in your life. Decades of disciplined saving, careful spending, never really going overboard, and your kids are grown. Your knees aren't great, and you're sitting at the kitchen table, drinking your morning coffee, staring at a travel brochure for Italy that's been on your fridge for 11 years. And somewhere deep in your chest, very quietly, there's this question that you almost don't want to let yourself ask. Was this the plan? Because here's the thing nobody tells you, and it took me a long time to really sit with this. Most of us spend the best years of our lives saving for a future version of ourselves who may never quite arrive. We delay the dinner. We skip the trip. We say, maybe next year, so many times that next year becomes next decade. And we tell ourselves it's responsible. We tell ourselves we're being smart. But what if some of that smartness is actually a kind of loss? That's what this video is about. Not about throwing your savings out the window. Not about living recklessly. But about a question that a book called Die with Zero asks so bluntly it almost feels rude. Are you optimizing your life? Or are you optimizing your spreadsheet? Let's talk about it. Here's the version of financial responsibility that most of us grew up with. Work hard, spend less than you earn, save as much as you possibly can, and then, someday, when the number is big enough, you'll be free, you'll travel, you'll rest, you'll finally do the things you always wanted to do. It's a clean story. It makes logical sense. And for a lot of people, it's the only financial story they ever heard. But there's a psychological trap buried inside it that almost nobody talks about. When you spend years, sometimes decades, training yourself to delay gratification, something quietly happens to your relationship with spending. It stops being a habit and starts being an identity. You become someone who doesn't spend. You become someone who saves. And that's not entirely a bad thing, but it means that when the moment finally arrives, when you actually have permission to spend, you often can't bring yourself to do it. There's real research on this, by the way. It's not just anecdotal. Studies have consistently shown that retirees, even wealthy retirees, tend to underspend relative to what they actually have. They keep saving out of habit, out of anxiety, out of a fear that the money might run out, even when the math clearly says it won't. They've spent 30 years building a psychological wall between themselves and spending, and then they expect that wall to just disappear on a Tuesday when they turn 65. It doesn't work that way, and this is why the Die with Zero framework, written by Bill Perkins, hit so many people so hard when it came out, because it named something that a lot of us had quietly felt but never said out loud. That maybe we've been so focused on having money that we've quietly forgotten to have a life. So what does Die with Zero actually argue? At its heart, the book makes a very simple claim. Your goal in life shouldn't be to accumulate as much money as possible. Your goal should be to have as many meaningful experiences as possible. And money is only valuable to the extent that it converts into those experiences. That sounds almost obvious when you say it like that, but follow the logic for a second, because it gets uncomfortable. If money is only a tool for experiences, and experiences have a time dimension to them, meaning some things are better done at 30 than at 70, and some things are literally impossible at 70, then hoarding money past the point where it can meaningfully improve your experiences isn't wisdom. It's waste. Perkins calls this concept life energy. Every dollar you earn represents a unit of your time, your stress, your health, your actual life. And when you die with millions in the bank, those dollars don't evaporate into some cosmic savings account. They just sit there. Or they go to your kids, who are probably in their 50s by then, and don't need it the way they would have at 25. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is where people sometimes misread the book. Die with Zero is not saying, spend everything immediately. It's not anti-savings. It's not telling you to blow your emergency fund on a vacation. What it's saying is this: be intentional about when you spend. Think about what you actually want your life to look like. And don't let fear of an uncertain future cause you to underlive a certain present. There's this idea in the book about what Perkins calls memory dividends. And I think this is one of the most emotionally resonant concepts I've come across in any personal finance book. The idea is that when you have an experience, a real, meaningful experience, It doesn't just give you value in the moment. It keeps giving you value for the rest of your life. Every time you think about that trip you took with your dad before he got sick. Every time your kids mention that summer you rented the little house by the lake. Every time you smile at a photo from that weekend you almost didn't go on. Those memories compound. Just like interest compounds in a savings account, except they don't require a broker. They don't require market conditions. They're just there, yours, forever. And here's the mathematical edge to this that I think people miss. The value of an experience isn't fixed. It depends on when you have it. A hiking trip at 35 and a hiking trip at 75 are not the same experience. That's not pessimistic. It's just real. Your body changes. Your energy changes. The people who would have come with you may no longer be here, or may no longer be able to join you. Waiting isn't neutral. There's an actual cost to delay that never shows up on a balance sheet. Perkins uses this term, the declining ability to convert money into experiences. And when I first read that phrase, I genuinely had to put the book down for a second, because it reframes everything. It means that $1 spent on an experience at 45 is worth more to your actual life than the same dollar spent at 75. Not because of inflation or investment returns, but because of your physical capacity, your relationships, your health, and the simple reality of how time works. Think about the experiences that have genuinely shaped you. The ones you look back on and feel grateful for. Were most of them free? Some, maybe. But a lot of them involved some kind of investment. In travel, in time away from work, in choosing the meal you actually wanted instead of the cheapest option, in saying yes to something that felt slightly out of reach. And now think about the things you've postponed, the trip you keep saying you'll take, the experience you keep calling not yet. What are you waiting for? Exactly. What's the number that would make you feel ready? Because here's what I've noticed. And maybe you've noticed this too. The number keeps moving. It was 100,000. Then it was 200. Then it was, when I pay off the car. Then it was, when the kids are done with school. The goalpost slides because the goalpost isn't really about money. It's about fear. And that's the real conversation here. This isn't fundamentally a financial discussion. It's a psychological one. The question isn't how much do I need to save. The question is, what am I actually afraid of? For most people, the fear runs pretty deep. It's the fear of running out, the fear of becoming a burden, the fear of making a wrong financial decision and having to live with the consequences. And those fears make complete sense, especially if you grew up watching money be scarce, or if you've been through periods of financial stress. Your nervous system learned to treat saving as safety, and once that association is built, it doesn't just switch off when your net worth crosses some threshold. But here's the mindset shift that I think Die with Zero is really inviting us into. The goal isn't to stop saving. The goal is to start living with your savings instead of for them. To treat your money as something that belongs to your life, not something your life belongs to. There's a concept in psychology called temporal discounting. It's the natural human tendency to value things in the present more than the same things in the future. We know this. We feel it all the time that $100 today feels more valuable than $100 5 years from now, even if rationally they're the same. But here's the twist. When it comes to spending on yourself, on experiences, on joy, on things that matter, we often flip this completely backward. We undervalue the present and overvalue some future moment that keeps receding into the distance. We do the opposite of temporal discounting. We temporal discount our own happiness. And the cost of that is something you can't get back. I think about this in terms of seasons of life. You have seasons where your health is at its peak. You can hike, travel, stay up late, try new things without your body punishing you for it. You have seasons where the people you love most are still around and still well. You have seasons where your kids are young and want to do things with you, before they become teenagers who definitely don't want to do things with you. These seasons are finite. They pass quietly, and you often don't notice until they're already behind you. Die with Zero is, at its core, a case for taking those seasons seriously, for not assuming that the best version of your life is waiting somewhere past a retirement date, for recognizing that your life isn't a practice run that ends when you hit a certain account balance. So what does this actually look like in practice? Because I don't want this to stay abstract. The first thing, and this sounds almost too simple, is to actually ask yourself what experiences you want your life to include. Not vague answers like travel more or spend time with family, specific ones. Where do you want to go? Who do you want to be with? What do you want to do before your body makes it harder? Or before the people you want to share it with are no longer in a position to join you? Write it down if that helps. Make it concrete. Because when experiences live only in your head as someday, they never compete fairly against the urgent, real demands of right now. You have to give them weight. You have to make them real. The second thing is what Perkins calls bucketing. And I think this is genuinely useful even if you're not a die-hard planner. The idea is to think about your life in rough time buckets. Maybe it's your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, and beyond. And for each bucket, think about what experiences are most naturally suited to that season of life. Active, physical adventures probably belong earlier, maybe slower. Reflective travel comes later. Being present with your parents before they're gone. That has a window, and the window is usually smaller than we think. When you start thinking in buckets, it changes how you look at saving and spending. It's not about spending less or spending more. It's about spending at the right time, getting the most life out of every dollar rather than just the most security. Third, and this is important, this framework doesn't mean abandoning financial safety. You still need an emergency fund. You still benefit from investing for real retirement security. The die with zero philosophy isn't in conflict with those things. It's asking you to optimize around them, to make sure that while you're building security, you're not accidentally building a prison. One practical heuristic from the book that I really like: think about giving money to your children or causes you care about while you're alive, rather than leaving it all as inheritance. The psychological and relational value of giving someone a down payment on a house when they're 30 is incomparably different from leaving them money when they're 55 and you're gone. The experience of being helped and the experience of helping happens in real time. It doesn't wait. And finally, probably the most uncomfortable one, try to audit where your money anxiety is actually coming from. Is it math or is it emotion? Because for most people, it's emotion. Most people with a stable income, a reasonable savings rate, and a basic retirement account are not going to run out of money. They feel like they might. The fear is real, but the probability is lower than the fear suggests. If you genuinely aren't sure whether your financial plan is solid, talk to an actual fee-only financial planner, not someone who earns commissions, someone who just gives you honest advice for a flat fee. Getting clarity on the real numbers can do something remarkable for the anxiety. Sometimes the fear loses its grip when you can actually see the math laid out in front of you. I want to leave you with something that Bill Perkins writes near the end of the book, because I think it captures everything better than I could. He talks about standing at the end of your life and asking yourself whether you fully lived it. Not did I leave a big enough estate, not did I have a high enough savings rate, but did you actually use the one life you were given? And that question isn't meant to terrify you, it's meant to focus you. Because the antidote to regret isn't impulsiveness, it's intentionality. It's making conscious choices about what matters to you and giving those things a seat at the table, not waiting for them to fit perfectly into some future moment that may or may not look the way you're imagining. You are allowed to go on the trip. You are allowed to take the weekend. You are allowed to spend some of what you've worked so hard to save, not because you've earned it in some transactional sense, but because that was the point. That was always the point. Money is not the goal. Money is the bridge. And a bridge that you never actually walk across isn't serving its purpose, no matter how beautifully maintained it is. So here's what I hope you take from this. Not stress, not guilt, not the pressure to immediately do something dramatic with your finances. Just a quiet reconsideration, a moment of asking yourself, honestly, whether the life you're building toward is the life you actually want, and whether there's something you could do or experience or give this year, not someday, that would add something irreplaceable to the story of your life. Progress beats perfection. A small yes to something that matters is worth more than a perfect plan that never moves. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.